Hello and welcome to Newsline. It's Friday the 31st of May. I'm Daniel Miranda.
And I'm Celine Farah. Over the next hour, we'll be bringing news and current affairs from across Australia and the world.
The Cricket World Cup has started and Victoria Raptors will give us an update a bit later in the show.
And I had a great time hanging with some cats and dogs to find out what they should be eating. But first, here's what's making news this afternoon.
New Labor leader Anthony Albanese says the party will be a united team. Mr Albanese has dismissed reports Bill Shorten has privately told allies he wants his job back. We'll have more on this story later with Sasha Geyer.
Adani is one approval away from starting construction of its Queensland coal mine after the Queensland government expected its plan to protect an endangered bird. A final approval on managing groundwater is due by the 13th of June.
A 14-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl have been charged over a fatal car crash in Brisbane's north. A 14-year-old passenger was killed while 4 young people were injured. We'll have more on the news headlines later in the program. Back to Victoria now. Exhibition Street is one of Melbourne City's most dangerous roads for cyclists. I reported earlier on the increased need for safer bicycle lanes on our roads.
In the past 5 years, there have been more than 30 injuries and crashes to cyclists on Exhibition Street alone. The new City of Melbourne Transport Plan looks to address public concern for cyclist safety on Exhibition Street by installing dedicated barrier-protected bike lanes. Melbourne City Council has voted to fund the $2.6 million project, which will also see the removal of nearly 130 parking spaces and a driving lane on each side of the road between Latrobe and Flinders Streets. The Council and Bicycle Network say the presence of separated bike lanes is important for the safe movement of people.
We need Melbourne to continue to be one of the most livable cities in the world, and to do that you need to prioritise bike riding and pedestrian movement and reduce car traffic. And if we can put in proper separated bike lanes, we'll see an increase in safety and also more people riding.
Council surveys show that 83% of people who would consider cycling in the CBD would feel confident if there was some physical separation between themselves and cars, while only 22% feel confident cycling with just painted bike lanes.
I think it would be safe to put bike lanes with barriers.
I'm always nervous about someone opening their door, and that separation really helps with that.
Anything to separate bikes from cars is a good thing.
The new City of Melbourne Transport Plan will not only see improvements to Exhibition Street's bike lanes, but also see over 50 kilometres of new separated bike paths across the Melbourne CBD and Melbourne area.
Other streets that are going to have changes we think might be Collins Street. We know that Royal Parade from the north, St Kilda Road from the south are also going to have upgrades made to them, and also some changes to Bourke Street and some really inner city small streets as well.
The council aims to achieve its citywide plans to increase cyclist priority by 2030, creating a safer and less congested Melbourne. Daniel Miranda, Newsline.
What a great report there, Daniel.
Thanks, Celine.
And now to Sasha Geyer with politics.
The new federal opposition leader Anthony Albanese has responded to Bill Shorten's claims that the 2019 election results were influenced by corporate leviathans. While Albanese acknowledged vested interests playing a role, he told Breakfast TV this morning that the Labor Party must accept the outcome. Disagreements between Albanese and Shorten have led to concerns that Shorten may still harbour ambition for Labor leadership. However, Albanese dismissed these claims, reassuring that Shorten is still a team player. US President Donald Trump has said that Russia helped elect him in a tweet posted yesterday. The tweet, which was part of a thread slamming the Russia investigation as a witch hunt hoax, claimed that, quote, "Russia has disappeared because I had nothing to do with Russia helping me to get elected." The president then backtracked in a White House media conference, repeating the phrase, "Russia did not help me get elected," several times. This comes a day after Special Counsel Robert Mueller clarified that his investigation had not exonerated Trump of any criminal wrongdoing. This is today's politics. Back to you on the news desk.
Thanks for the update on what's making news in the world of politics, Sasha. Moving on, Darebin Council is set to roll out a food waste recycling scheme by the end of this year. As Claudia Scubell reports, this follows a successful 6-month trial.
According to Oz Harvest, 35% of the average Australian household bin is made up of food waste. This leads to around 5 million tonnes of food waste ending up in landfill every year.
We purchase food that we don't necessarily eat and consume, and then we throw it away. But when we throw it away, it lands into landfill. It doesn't go into a compost or where it's used as a resource.
The Darebin Waste Trial involved around 1,000 Kingsbury residents and ran for 6 months. Residents were asked to place their food waste into their standard green bins.
I think the trial went really well.
It's a great idea considering how much food waste we produce.
If the council's actually doing something really good like that, I'm more than happy to support them.
The trial was successful, with 72% of participants supporting the rollout of the scheme for the wider Darebin community.
What we're going to do now is introduce the garden waste bin, and in the garden waste bin we're going to allow food, and the food will include meat and fish.
Once collected, the waste will go to a processing plant, which will turn the waste into compost. The compost will be given to Australian farmers, as well as being available for purchase.
Food now needs to be considered as a resource rather than as an item that you discard and throw away.
As well as households, Australian businesses produce around 1.3 million tonnes of food waste every year. The Darebin scheme aims to include small businesses, as well as anyone willing to participate. However, the scheme will not include large companies such as supermarkets and franchises.
When it comes to commercial and industrial waste, that is something that is managed privately by the organisations.
Darebin Council aims to have the scheme rolling out into the wider community by the end of 2019. Claudia Escubal in Darebin for Newsline.
The Victorian Auditor General's Office has revealed patient health data is highly vulnerable to cyber attacks, making it easy to access. Auditors staged a mock hacking on 3 of the state's big medical facilities, which exposed several weaknesses in their patient record systems. Not only does the leaking of sensitive data happen through digital means, but also through the physical theft of information. We cross live to Chris Neese outside the Royal Children's Hospital in Parkville. Chris, what did the test reveal?
Thanks, Elaine. So the Victorian Auditor General's Office conducted a mock hacking between 3 of Victoria's largest medical centres, namely the Barwon Health, the Royal Victorian Eye and Ear Hospital, as well as the Royal Children's Hospital, where I am today. What they found was quite alarming. They exposed several potential weaknesses which could allow hackers to access sensitive information regarding patient records. So the Auditor General's Office said that there are key weaknesses in health services, physical security, as well as their logical security. And the data awareness itself among staff was quite low. So this enables hackers easier access and increased abilities to do techniques such as phishing, so using email pseudonyms to access information, or tailgating, so physically following staff members into facilities and then accessing documents either electronically or physically taking them.
So Chris, is the prevalence of cyber attacks in accessing patient information growing?
It appears to be so, Daniel. So today revealed obviously a major flaw in the cybersecurity network between these places, but it wasn't the first time this year. There was earlier in February in Melbourne, there was a ransomware attack directed towards a cardiology clinic, but obviously one of the most well-known cases of this was on a worldwide scale with the operation called No Cry, I believe it was called. This took place in 99 countries and really crippled many national health services, particularly those of Russia or the United Kingdom.
And with the severity of these attacks, has the Victorian government invested in cybersecurity?
Yes, Elaine. So Health Minister Jenny Mikakos said that the government was serious about safeguarding hospital data. So in this year's state budget, $33 million was pledged towards the safeguarding of these hospital cyber networks, as well as an additional $13 million being pledged towards the establishment and stabilisation of digital infrastructure.
And Chris, does this extend beyond the health sector?
There appears to be some examples of that, Elaine. So several Victorian government buildings were found to have some flaws in their system. There were a couple of deficiencies from a cyber perspective. While the security itself was quite adequate, it was the lack of awareness and a weak cyber awareness, I guess you could say, regarding this, which was the main problem. So it's prompted more initiatives, so reporting more incidents, and particularly the enforcement of the clear screen and clean desk policy to make sure that desks and screens are clean, to prevent hackers easier access to these documents through the aforementioned techniques such as phishing or tailgating.
Thanks for that report, Chris. Hopefully you didn't get too wet out there. Coming up, we take a look at what's making news around the nation and around the world. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to Newsline. It's 4:10, and now we'll be looking at some news from across Australia with Sam Watson.
Thanks, guys. Residents on the 19th floor of a South Bank apartment building were forced to flee this morning when a fire destroyed a balcony. It took just 30 minutes for 32 firefighters and 2 aerial units to extinguish the blaze at the Whiteman Street building. The cause of the fire is still unknown. A creepy online forum that outlines the best spots in Melbourne to pick up young women has been condemned by students and women's groups. The forum ranking the quality of women at numerous locations has resurfaced after several Melbourne women have been killed in public places. A man trying to smuggle 45 cartons of cigarettes through Perth Airport is being caught and is now facing up to $20,000 in fines. The fly-in, fly-out worker told ABF officers that he was bringing in only 25 cigarettes from Dubai, which is the maximum legal amount. He pleaded guilty to evading duty payable and making false and misleading statements to customs officers. And that's your news from across Australia. I'm Sam Watson.
Thanks for that update, Sam. And Victoria's Upper House has backed a push by prominent MP Fiona Patten for an inquiry into the possible legalisation of marijuana. Sky Mitchell takes a closer look at how some in the community are rallying behind the move.
The Free Cannabis Group has been campaigning for an end to marijuana prohibition for 9 years. Every year on April 20, supporters of the movement gather in Flagstaff Gardens and smoke cannabis in protest of current drug laws. The local organiser of these gatherings, Matt Riley, is an adamant believer that prohibition hurts good people.
There's no reason to actually criminalise people for using cannabis. I'm hoping to let the public see quite clearly that momentum is building.
According to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, cannabis is the most widely used illicit drug in Australia. The group's mission is to bring about change in society's attitudes towards cannabis and its consumers. Among the group's supporters are 4 local politicians, including Victorian MP Fiona Patten, who has been calling on all sides of politics to take action on cannabis for some time.
There are a number of reasons why I support the legalisation of cannabis. First, and probably the most important, is it never should have been illegal. This is a plant.
Despite the campaign gaining traction with the support of local MPs, the police presence at these rallies reminds everyone that cannabis is still an illegal substance. There is currently no intention at a state or federal level to legalise the non-medical use of marijuana. Sky Mitchell in Melbourne for Newsline.
A very interesting report there from Sky. It seems members of the public want Australia to follow in the footsteps of other countries such as Canada. There has been a new development in the Hungary boat crash. With more on this and the rest of today's world news, here's Brodie Hoyne.
Thanks, guys. Yes, the captain of a vessel that collided with a tour boat in Budapest Danube River has been arrested. The 64-year-old Ukrainian was taken into custody for misconduct in waterborne traffic, leading to the deaths of 7 South Korean tourists. 21 others are still missing, with hopes dwindling that they'll be found alive. Over in the States, Louisiana's governor has signed a new abortion law that bans the procedure once a heartbeat is detected. The law could prohibit abortions as early as 6 weeks into pregnancy. The bill was backed heavily on Wednesday as state legislators voted 79 to 23 in favour. Governor General John Bell Edwards signed the bill into law this morning. And finally, if you're already over Melbourne's cold weather, just be thankful it's not tornado season. More than 200 tornadoes have been recorded since the 17th of May across the United States, and eyewitness reports reveal up to 500 tornadoes over the course of the month. The severe weather could potentially affect up to 34 million Americans in states ranging from Texas in the south to New Jersey in the northeast. That's it for today's international news. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks for that, Brody. Well, dogs are being trained to help protect endangered animals and plants. Joanne Moniz looks at the work of a Bendigo-based specialist dog lab.
Today's research partners no longer wear lab coats. Instead, they have a fur coat and 4 legs. With their keen sense of smell, man's best friend is able to pick up the scent of endangered species that are not being detected by current conservation methods. For 2 years, the team at La Trobe's Dog Lab have been working with volunteers to train their pet dogs for scent detection. This has been done by making the dogs think their conservation efforts are a fun game to play.
And it's all based around positive reinforcement, so when they're smelling the insect, they get a reward. When they're fully trained, they have their alert behaviour, or what they do to tell us that they found something, is to sort of sit back and point to it with their nose and not actually touch it.
Throughout the training, the dogs have learned to search in larger and more complex environments. This has seen them able to recognise the scent of the greater glider, detect turtle nests, and even track one of the smallest animals, the alpine stonefly. The dogs are able to cover large areas and often challenging terrain. This makes them invaluable to conservation practices as they can detect endangered species that are often difficult to find. But it's not just fun and games for these conservation canines.
We've built a bit of a closer bond through doing this sort of work. He's a bit more obedient, especially when I tell him to come when he's off doing something, and he'll come straight over to me.
While they might not be your typical working dog, these dogs are working hard to assist in the conservation of Australia's endangered species.
I think dogs have such an amazing capability to find evidence of plants and animals that is just not being able to picked up by other techniques that exist today. And certainly the options are virtually limitless with what you can train a dog to detect.
Joanne Moniz, Newsline.
What a nice little story there from Joe. On the other end of this break, we'll preview tonight's AFL match, look at the use of sensory rooms, and cross live to reporter Stephen Smith at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to Newsline. It's 4:20. I'm Celine Farah.
And I'm Daniel Miranda. Here are your news headlines.
Labor leader Anthony Albanese says the party will be a united team. Mr Albanese has dismissed reports Bill Shorten has privately told allies he wants his job back.
Adani is one approval away from starting construction of its Queensland coal mine after the Queensland government accepted its plan to protect an endangered bird. A final approval on managing groundwater is due by the 13th of June.
A 14-year-old boy and 10-year-old girl have been charged over a fatal car crash in Brisbane's north. A 14-year-old passenger was killed, while 4 young people were injured. Those are the news headlines. And a La Trobe study has found females are up to 3.5 times more likely to suffer serious knee injuries in basketball compared to males. Brooke Varney reports, and just a warning here, some people might find the surgical images in this piece a bit confronting.
Bella Nicolarius is a 20-year-old Deakin University health science student who has been playing basketball since primary school. But in 2013, her basketball career was put on hold when she tore her left ACL.
I was playing domestic basketball and I was in defence and I went to go one way but my foot stayed planted and then my leg went the other way and it pretty much I thought it was dislocated, then I heard a loud pop noise and then pretty much fell straight to the ground. I was out of basketball, out of action for 1.5 years, so pretty much I had 2 lots of surgery and then it was after the second surgery I had a year off from there.
The ACL, or anterior cruciate ligament, is important in stabilising the knee joint. Carlton FC AFLW and VFLW physiotherapist Simone Muscat says there is a range of factors that could contribute. There are modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors when rupturing your ACL. One modifiable factor is the biomechanics of women's knees, which tend to fall inward on landing, bending, or jumping. A non-modifiable factor is adolescence, which shows that after puberty, men's muscles gain power, women's become more flexible.
Basketball is just one of the many fast-paced, direction-changing sports that put young female athletes like Bella at risk of tearing their ACLs. But does this stop them from playing the sport that they love? It's a mental thing, like you think you're going to do it again and you're going to go through it, but I guess it's just building that confidence on the court, and I guess the more I played on the court or the more I was on the court, like the more confidence I gained, and now like I just don't even think about it.
Brooke Varney, Newsline.
A very painful report there from Brooke Varney. Now to sport with Victoria Raptors. The cricket is underway, isn't it? The World Cup.
It sure is, Daniel. England has soared to a 104-run victory over South Africa in the Cricket World Cup opener. Player of the match, Ben Stokes, took a catch of the tournament contender in addition to his first innings 89. Australia plays Afghanistan in Bristol tomorrow night. In the AFL, Rhys Shaw will appear in his first game as interim coach for North Melbourne. Richmond captain Trent Cotchin will return from a hamstring injury in tonight's clash. Cotchin is one of 3 changes for the Tigers, with ruckman Ivan Soldo returning from suspension and Dan Butler rewarded for his good form in the VFL. To the NBA, we've just received an update that the Toronto Raptors have beaten the Golden State Warriors 118-109 in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Pascal Siakam scored 32 points for the Raptors, with teammate Kawhi Leonard adding 23 of his own. Steph Curry led the Warriors with 34 points at Toronto's Scotiabank Arena. In tennis, Ash Barty has continued her French Open campaign with a win over American Danielle Collins. Barty will play either Andrea Petkovic or She Su Wei in the 3rd round. Australian Diamonds coach Lisa Alexander has defended the Netball World Cup selection process following the announcement of the 12-player squad. Former vice-captain Gabby Simpson was omitted from the side. The Diamonds will open their campaign against Northern Ireland on the 12th of July. And that's all for sport. Back to you.
Thanks for that lovely sports report, Vic.
Isn't she great?
She sure is.
I reckon she's fantastic.
She sure is. And now staying on sport, while many see the football as an exciting experience, for those with autism, the hectic environment can be quite harrowing. Christopher Neese reports.
Runs onto it, thinks about going for home. He'll love that.
These are the sounds footy fans love. But for those with autism, footy's most iconic sounds, from a raucous cheer, the final siren, and the all too familiar
Get Footy Records, $5,
can be a frightening and overwhelming experience. That's why the St Kilda Football Club, in conjunction with Marvel Stadium, have established a chill-out zone, which allows those on the spectrum to disengage from the commotion while still being able to enjoy the game. The sensory room provides colouring books, phone blocks, putty and headphones, which help those with special needs not only to cope with the sensory overload, but with learning and a feeling of independence by being able to choose where and when to engage. Dr. Jose Molina, Clinical Director of Victoria's leading autism-specific service provider Irabina, says the recognition and accessibility of sensory rooms is a great first step in creating an inclusive environment.
There may be all sorts of sensory or types of sensory input that can be aversive in many cases for children with autism. So the creation of a sensory room provides a safe space for these children to not only access the sport, but also retreat to or go to if they feel like the sensory experience is becoming too overwhelming.
With Geelong, Hawthorn and St Kilda football clubs already utilising such facilities like the ones here at Marvel Stadium, there are talks that AFL will be considering implementing sensory rooms at every ground over the next few years. Although the number of people using these rooms has been relatively contained, the impact on families has been profound. To the Everett family, the existence of sensory rooms would have been a godsend, particularly for 18-year-old son Lachlan. After being unable to cope with the hectic atmosphere of the football at around 6 years of age, Lachlan didn't end up going to the football again until his late teens.
This is a more modern approach to accessibility, and that makes me happier. And if I potentially have children or work with children, it will make me a lot happier to know that they are going to have more options than I did.
A small change, but one that's made a world of difference. Chris Neese, Newsline.
Spanish soccer powerhouse Atletico Madrid is set to establish a presence in Melbourne this year. Layla Arakova reports the club has been working closely with a local family.
The Elasmas are diehard soccer fans who are committed to bettering Australia's national soccer performance. 16-year-old aspiring career soccer players PJ and Matthew Elasma have been living in Madrid and playing for Atletico Madrid for 2 years. This is precisely what inspired the family to collaborate with the club in its bid to branch out into Australia.
I truly think it's one of the best clubs in the world, just from the bottom upwards. It's just they make their players to be, more qualified, more experienced from a younger age group. Not only as you get to the seniors or to the just reserves. So yeah.
18-year-old university student, soccer player and coach Melanie Elasma has taken a leadership position in the process. The very first Atletico Madrid initiative will be a soccer talent camp, which will commence in July. Melanie is currently in talks with the local government and in search of a soccer ground for the talent camp.
I think kids here get babied a lot through the development program, especially in their early years. We don't really push them to the same degree that they are pushed in the European system, specifically in Spain, where I've had contact with, kids from the younger stages are working with ladders, they're working with hurdles, they're doing really specific drills to foster hand-eye coordination, all that type of thing.
As the third most played sport in Australia, soccer has a high grassroots participation. But in terms of the A-League, there is a lack of new talent. Coming from one of the world's most soccer-mad countries, Atletico Madrid may become a major game changer in Australia's professional soccer dynamic, which has been in recession for quite some time. Atletico Madrid representatives from Madrid will be observing and coaching July Talent Camp participants on ground. More information will be made available to the public in the following weeks of May. The official website for Atletico Madrid Melbourne will launch in the middle of this month. Layla Arakova, Newsline.
1.
It's good to see Australia getting some international sort of input from international clubs in the Australian soccer scene. I know my brother, he plays soccer at a fairly high level for a junior. I think he's a junior, but he will be a senior next year. So I think for me, that sounds good that they are, in fact, they're doing something about the scene here because it's pretty small here.
Yeah, that's right. And now moving on to a break. After the break, what to do about violence against women.
You're watching Newsline on Channel 31. I'm Bethany Hayes. Most Australian gyms are open 24/7, and as I found earlier, while they're popular, there are questions over their safety.
For exercise all day and all night. They're Australia's fastest growing gym model. It's the 24-hour gym. But just how safe are they? Australia's first 24-hour franchise, Jets, maintains that their gyms have a number of protocols to keep patrons safe at all hours.
So members use a swipe tag to swipe in and out. There's also lanyards that people can wear. If something goes wrong, they can hit that and have security check the cameras and talk to them straight away. The emergency phone as well, so if someone has an injury, they can always pick up the emergency phone and talk to someone straight away.
But sports science student Molly says it's the other people in the gym that concern her most.
My scariest thought is being alone with someone else in the gym and just feeling unsafe in the way that there are parts of the gym that don't have cameras, like toilets or little corners, and I feel like, if it's really late at night and it's just you and that one other person, anything could happen.
With over 1,000 24-hour gyms in Australia, working out in the middle of the night in an unstaffed facility has become the norm. The standard 24-hour gym is only staffed for 7 hours of the day, meaning no physical supervision for the remaining 17 hours. And there are no current mandatory laws in Australia which require a gym to install a defibrillator.
The security company are watching from the cameras. As soon as something goes, they go in straight away, and 2 seconds later, I would have a phone call.
While there are certainly safety measures in place, it's not enough to ease the mind of all individuals.
You definitely feel more safe having staff all around.
Bethany Hayes, Newsline. Every year in Australia, there are between 50 and 70 deaths due to violence against women. Last Friday, 25-year-old Courtney Heron was attacked and killed in Royal Park, making her the 20th woman to be killed in such circumstances in Australia this year. And police are calling for attitudes towards women to change. WIRE, the Women's Information and Referral Exchange, is a not-for-profit organisation that has supported women in Victoria since 1984. Manager at WIRE, Tulsi Rajaguru, joins us live in the studio now. Tulsi, thank you for joining us.
Absolute pleasure.
Why do you think we've seen so many attacks as of late in Melbourne?
We've seen so many attacks because of society's value of women's lives and attitudes towards women. And all these attacks have one thing in common: men's entitlement on women's lives and bodies, and men's behaviour. So we have a real cultural problem that needs to change.
And what does your work do at WIRE to help support women who are facing violence?
So we do a number of things. We have a phone support line and a walk-in centre. Any woman, non-binary and gender diverse person can come in and access our services, and we can connect them up to other services as well. We also run a primary prevention program around conversations to change those attitudes towards women and change attitudes towards violence against women. We found that one of the key barriers to women leaving violent relationships is access to money. So we run a number of financial capability programs as well to help women be financially independent. And for those experiencing isolation and homelessness, including homelessness from family violence, we run a lunchtime program called Amika that provides a sense of community and connection and a safe space to be.
Mm-hmm. And just in relation to the latest attacks, do you think that in Melbourne there is a lack of CCTV footage or police presence at all?
I wouldn't say that there is more CCTV footage and police presence is great, but it does not prevent violence from happening. It helps us catch the perpetrator, it helps us with conviction, but it doesn't make it safer for women, it doesn't stop deaths. And so if we're really serious about protecting women, keeping them safe, we really need to work on preventing violence.
Mm-hmm. And going forward in the future in this prevention of violence, what are some of the key aspects you think that would help in this prevention?
So I think more investment in primary prevention programs that are focused on changing attitudes towards women and around gender equality is really needed. Men's behavioural change programs as well are really important, and more housing for victim survivors of family violence. The Victorian government has made a wonderful investment in family violence, incredible, it really should be commended, but more can be done. We do have a shortage of housing right now for victim survivors of family violence.
Mm-hmm. And in regards to changing attitudes towards women, do you think that's something that needs to be looked at in a significant sense?
I think it does, and there's something that we can all do to change those attitudes towards women. We can have those conversations in our lives around gender equality and violence against women, and because conversations can create change, they can change attitudes. And we can really work on challenging the rigid gender roles that lead to violence against women, calling out sexist jokes that lead to poor treatment of women. Simple things like that can make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. And in starting one of these conversations, what do you think is the best way to do so?
We're all human. Connect on our values, connect on our shared humanity, and talk to someone. There'll be your family, your friends, your colleagues. Ask them, explore that issue. I think we found that when you connect on a value level, it's easy to change someone's mind and bust those myths about violence against women. Not all men, but a lot of them, I think, in how to get Speed's words. And the statistics show that as well. Violence against women is a gendered issue. So I think in having that conversation and being open to talking to someone rather than getting angry at them or calling out is really helps change those attitudes.
Mm-hmm. And in regards again to changing those attitudes and changing behaviour, what do you think would be alternative steps other than having a conversation?
For men, there are men behavioural change programs that the Men's Line, which is an excellent resource that can be accessed. Men can seek out support if they're concerned that their behaviour is causing harm to others. And for women, there are services like you can contact us at Wire, seek support and guidance around how, if you're concerned about someone's behaviour, someone's attitudes towards women, we can support those conversations or other ways of changing those attitudes.
And going forward, some women are probably feeling a little bit vulnerable right now. What's some advice you'd give to those women right now?
I'd say it's understandable to feel vulnerable with these attacks happening. And I would say listen to what you're feeling, listen to your instincts. If you're not feeling safe, reach out to your family, your friends. There are a number of support services that are available. You can always contact us at Wire, and also 1-800-RESPECT is an amazing resource as well. So I say reach out and really connect with others if you're feeling concerned about your safety.
Tulsi from Wire, thank you so much for today. The vigil for Courtney Heron will be held this evening at Royal Park. If you or someone you know is impacted by today's program, you can contact 1-800-RESPECT or Lifeline on 13 11 14. You can also contact Men's Line at 1300 789 978. For more information on Wire and the work they can do, you can visit their website at wire.org.au. We're going to take a quick break here on Newsline. We'll be back with plenty more just after this.
Clear.
Welcome back to Newsline. It's 4:45. Now we'll find out what's new in arts. Here's our arts reporter, Emma Sullivan.
Thanks, guys. We heard earlier with Brody in international news, some US states are making abortion laws illegal once more, where there's now been some blowback from America's arts industry. Disney, Netflix and now Warner Media have made statements they will reconsider filming in Georgia if the state's new abortion law takes effect. The legislation, which would ban abortion after a fetal heartbeat can be detected, has caused serious backlash in Hollywood and led to call for a boycott. Georgia makes billions of dollars from film and television productions, including recent blockbuster Black Panther and Avengers Endgame. 9 years since their last performance, U2 is making a return to the stage. U2 will bring the Joshua Tree Tour to stages all across Australia in November in commemoration of their iconic 1987 album. The live tour comes to Melbourne November 15th and tickets will go on sale to the general public on Tuesday, June 11th. National Gallery of Victoria's Friday night series are back tonight with China's ancient terracotta warriors alongside new works by Sai Kuo Chiang. Enjoy after-hours access to the winter exhibition over a glass of bubbly and music by Melbourne's four-piece artist Husky. Different music acts will accompany the exhibition every Friday until the 12th of October. That's it for today. I'm Emma Sullivan. Back to you.
Thanks for that, Emma. I wasn't aware of how much money a state could make from film production. Anyway, the award-winning One Thuggy theatrical group is back on stage. Sam Watson reports on the team that keeps bringing entertainment to their local community.
This year marks the 50th anniversary for the One Thuggy theatrical group, and as always, the local community is throwing their support behind the production. Les Miserables is the choice for the amateur group's golden anniversary, and over 75% of tickets have been sold already. Longtime director Karen Hendry thinks it's the close bond the local community has that gets the big audiences back every year.
I think it's that wonderful thing of your next door neighbour is like someone who owns a shop or is a doctor or they teach at your school, and then you see them up there in this completely other character, and it's that fascination we have, I think, with that transfer from real life to stage life.
Chicago, The Boy from Oz and Anything Goes are just a few of the productions the group has achieved countless awards for in previous years. The reasons for the amateur group's success is clear for Tom Green, who plays Jean Valjean in the upcoming production.
The love and the passion that everyone puts in. So, I mean, sure, there's only maybe 20 or 30 people on the stage that you're seeing giving 100%, but there's hundreds of people behind the scenes that are putting in countless hours, countless amount of days to get the productions up and running, and every single person loves it and cares about it. It's a passion. It's an absolute passion.
The group has been auditioning at One Thuggy's first establishment, the now closed State Coal Mine. Shortly, the group will move rehearsals to the One Thuggy Union Community Arts Centre, where the shows will be performed. WTG's Les Miserables opens on May 25th and 12 shows will be performed until June 9th. Sam Watson, in Wonthaggi for Newsline.
A great report there by Sam. And now to Joanne Moniz for finance news.
In finance news, James Packer has sold half his share in Crown Resorts for a $1.76 billion to Macau-based company Melco Resorts and Entertainment. While it's too early to tell what impact this will have in the Australian economy, this strengthens China's influence within Australia. In other news, the trade wars between China and the US continues to escalate. While this affected markets yesterday, they have normalised now. The American markets have stayed flat, with both the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 only rising a few points. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong opened down 0.5%. The London FTSE was up 0.5%. Back home, the futures predicted a sharp drop for the Australian ASX 200, but didn't materialise. The ASX 200 was down to 0.17% and has been dropping, while the All Ords had a loss of 0.31%. While the Aussie dollar seems to be steady, I wouldn't rush out on a holiday during the semester break, as you would have needed to work double time during the semester. The Aussie dollar will still only buy 69 US cents, while the possibility of a Euro trip also looks bleak, with the Aussie dollar at 62 euros and British pence at 54 cents. Commodities seem to be fluctuating. Wheat, gold and iron ore have gone up overnight, while copper made a slight loss. But the real losers are in oil and gas, so it looks like no road trips this weekend. Back to you.
Thanks, Joe. I feel like we're the real losers not being able to travel anytime soon. Anyway, on a lighter note, now vets are warning about the possible dangers of vegan diets for dogs and cats. Celine discusses the issue with the local vet.
A recent study has found a growing number of pet owners are feeding their dogs and cats vegan diets. Amber May, owner of rescue dog Rosie, says she was advised to put her dog on a vegan diet due to existing health issues.
She came with pancreatitis, which is from eating really bad, poor quality meat with a lot of fat, and the vet suggested that something that like Vegan Pet might agree more with her. We've had her checked regularly and the vet said that she's got the best nutritional profile of any dog that they've seen.
But Amber says for a safe vegan diet, owners need to make sure the food they are providing is nutritionally balanced.
If you do feed your dogs just vegetables or something that's not got the right nutrients, they will die.
While humans are able to live on a vegan diet, this is not always the case for cats and dogs. Even with the presence of commercial vegan pet foods, vets warn the vegan diet is not without risk.
The problem with plant source proteins, some of them are sort of not digestible or not as nutritionally complete as animal sourced proteins, so you can run risk of animals not getting the appropriate proteins they need.
Dr. Santucci says cats, being obligate carnivores, are at very high risk on a vegan diet. They are unable to produce the amino acid taurine, only found in meat.
Taurine is vital for health, heart and also eye development and things like that. So there have certainly been cats that have died, unfortunately, from not getting taurine through their diets.
If pet owners decide to put their dogs and cats on a vegan diet, Dr. Santucci says research and regular vet checkups are necessary.
The ways we could at least measure the effect of that diet would be through regular blood tests and urine testing. If they're not doing their research and certainly seeking veterinary advice, then they could be doing more harm than good, unfortunately.
Celine Farah, Newsline.
That was a very nice story there, Celine.
Thanks,
now,
Daniel.
Aside from Rosie, were all of those animals in that video yours?
Yes, they were my little kittens and my dogs. Aren't they cute?
Well, are any of them on a vegan diet?
No, they're not. So from a young age, I've basically fed them meat, so I'd be quite hesitant to transition them over now. But I can see why some people do.
Do you reckon they'd be too fussy to eat right now, or is it more of a sort of they're used to their diet? So
Yeah, I think they are used to their diet and they're quite healthy, so I'd stick to that.
And I definitely feel like if an animal gets sick or they're not enjoying their food, they'll just eat it. Whereas a human, they'll tell you they're not feeling well, they don't really like it. So it's a lot easier to tell when a human switches diet.
Exactly. And now it's time for a look at the weather, including the all-important weekend forecast. Here's David Forster. David, what's it like outside right now?
It's cloudy and fairly miserable day. Melbourne temperatures today range between 11 and 15 degrees. The rain will be easing for the rest of today, but keep your umbrella with you. The winds are south to southwesterly, 15 to 25 kilometres an hour. Skiers will be excited by the early opening of the snow season this weekend rather than the usual Queen's Birthday season opener. Mount Buller has 36 millimetres of snow with no lifts open. 3 millimetres has fallen in the last 24 hours at Mount Buller. Snow above 1,700 metres is expected. Melbourne's water storage is at a 50% storage due to seasonal lack of rain and higher than average temperatures. Despite the rain, O'Shanassy Reservoir in the Yellow Valley has storage at only 4%. Looking ahead to the weekend, Saturday's a shower or two, 60% chance of rain, a top of 15 degrees. Sunday, 90% chance of rain and a top of 14 degrees. So more wet weather to come. It may be a good time to get out the doona for winter. And that's the way it is in the weather.
Thanks, David. It looks like we'll be staying indoors this weekend.
Now, due to popular demand, and I'm sure it's not because it's my story, we're going back to Victoria, where Exhibition Street is still one of Melbourne's most dangerous roads for cyclists in the city. So I reported earlier on the increased need for safer bicycle paths in the CBD.
Yes, there have been more. In the past 5 years, there have been more than 30 injuries and crashes to cyclists on Exhibition Street alone. The new City of Melbourne Transport Plan looks to address public concern for cyclist safety on Exhibition Street by installing dedicated barrier-protected bike lanes. Melbourne City Council has voted to fund the $2.6 million project, which will also see the removal of nearly 130 parking spaces and a driving lane on each side of the road between Latrobe and Flinders Streets. The Council and Bicycle Network say the presence of separated bike lanes is important for the safe movement of people.
We need Melbourne to continue to be one of the most livable cities in the world, and to do that you need to prioritise bike riding and pedestrian movement and reduce car traffic. And if we can put in proper separated bike lanes, we'll see an increase in safety and also more people riding.
Council surveys show that 83% of people who would consider cycling in the CBD would feel confident if there was some physical separation between themselves and cars, while only 22% feel confident cycling with just painted bike lanes.
I think it would be safe to put bike lanes with barriers.
I'm always nervous about someone opening their door, and that separation really helps with that.
Anything to separate bikes from cars is a good thing.
The new City of Melbourne Transport Plan will not only see improvements to Exhibition Street's bike lanes, but also see over 50 kilometres of new separated bike paths across the Melbourne CBD and Melbourne area.
Other streets that are going to have changes we think might be Collins Street. We know that Royal Parade from the north, St Kilda Road from the south are also going to have upgrades made to them, and also some changes to Burke Street and some really inner city small streets as well.
The council aims to achieve its citywide plans to increase cyclist priority by 2030, creating a safer and less congested Melbourne. Daniel Miranda, Newsline.
Again, great story there, Daniel. Do you ever cycle yourself in the city?
Not through the city really, Celine. I think this is mainly, it's not because it's a situation of like safety or my own confidence, but it's really, I can't get a bicycle onto any of the buses in my area, and we don't have any trams or trains in my area, so that does make it a bit difficult.
I have seen you with your skateboard though.
Yes, through first year and second year of uni, I was a bit of a skater boy. So I was skateboarding throughout the city, and I did come close to a few cars, so I can see why there is a need for bicycle lanes.
And that little boy you interviewed there, he was amazing. What else did he say to you?
Well, really, he was there with his dad, and he was just saying that really he doesn't feel too confident cycling around, and I guess dedicated bike paths with separations, they guide him a lot more, so it stops him from sort of veering off into like the wrong areas.
They are definitely important. Well, that's all we have time for today on Newsline. I'm Celine Farah.
And I'm Daniel Miranda. Thanks for joining us, and have a lovely evening.